to do is a little what we call digesting the Didache. So we've been in this section of telling you stories from your experience, from our experience in the greater church, that is our ways that we teach the faith through our very being. We teach the faith deliberately in classes, and we teach the faith in a more informal way in our relationships, our experiences of koinonia, in our liturgy. All of the gathering and sending us out is a form of ongoing formation. It's important that we understand fundamentally that how we teach what we believe matters. We have to be intentional about passing on faith. That we have, whether it's in our family, with our children, with our godchildren, with our nieces, nephews, grandparents, whether it's with our siblings, it doesn't just happen by osmosis. It's something happens by osmosis. That's called the Holy Spirit. But the real understanding of what it is that we believe has to be intentionally communicated. We teach who we are. That's a famous phrase that Parker Palmer, a Quaker educator, has used often, but it's very true. If I were trying to say any of the things I'm saying this morning, and there was not integrity about what I'm saying and my life, and you're the judges of that, maybe there isn't, but if there is, the message is stronger. If there isn't, if I just stand here and tell you a lot of things that I believe about the church that are theoretical and you don't see my life attempting to live faithfully into those truths, then my message is hollow. You know that as preachers and lay leaders in congregations. You need to understand that we teach what we live, which is why we started with your stories of proclamation. Can you be attentive to what your life is proclaiming, for good or for ill, and begin to harness the resources of your lived proclamation to actually share with your neighbors and your friends the good news of Jesus Christ?
I love that expression about living the song that we sing. That's just
great. Yeah, that was a beautiful example from Oxford. Faith formation is lifelong and church-wide, so do not feel that you in your particular congregation are doing it alone. God is at work. God goes before us. God is behind us. God is underneath us, above us, behind us, everywhere. What we need to know, though, is that we are intentional about it where we are. So it happens in our homes. It happens in our congregations. It happens in our gatherings like this, our summer camps, our work in the jails, our partnering with other denominations, with people of other faith traditions. But it is lifelong. Even when we do formal education well, we don't graduate from it. There are episodic periods of intensive focus, which are really important. A Lenten series is very important. But we don't stop learning about God because we're checking off, I finished that Lenten series on the Gospel of Mark. We move on and continue to integrate that in our everyday life. So we need to continue to teach and learn faith from the day we are born until the day we die. Christian mission requires Christian disciples. I said this at the beginning, but we talk about how to grow the church, we talk about evangelism, we talk about all the things we want the world to know about the church. If we're not really yet clear or comfortable with our identity as Christian disciples, it's very hard to convince people in a very busy world that's very consumer-driven, that has lots of other bells and whistles attracting their attention, to come and walk with us. So we have the interior work that we need to do that accompanies the exterior ministry that we live. Be intentional, and my best language for how we do this is to practice discernment. It's not about the programs. It's about listening to God, active with us in the places we find ourselves, and building on the strengths that God has given us. One of the most powerful congregations I have ever seen as a witness to the world was a tiny church in southeastern Minnesota, in Waukesha. There were 45 active members of that church. And there was one retired school teacher, John White, who was about 75. And he realized that the teenagers that were affiliated with that church had nobody looking out for them. And he said, I'm a retired teacher. I don't know anything about youth ministry, but I'm a teacher. I know something about the faith, and I like kids. He was a man with bad arthritic knees. He started meeting with the 2 kids that they had, who brought their friends, who brought their siblings. By the time I met John, they were bringing 10 teenagers to every diocesan youth event in the Diocese of Minnesota. 2 years later, 3 of those teenagers were on the vestry. One of them had a key to the church because he went by the church every day on his way to school. So he took care of the snow removal. He was the one that let repair people in, or people in who needed to have access to the building because he could get there more quickly. One of the young people played the organ. They thought they could never afford a musician again and discovered that this pianist had enough skill that he could learn to play the organ. By the time I left Minnesota to come out here to Virginia Seminary, that congregation had 45 active teenagers in the church on a regular basis. And John White is the reason that happened. It wasn't a program. He didn't ask me for a curriculum. He started loving the young people one by one. And so they listened together to God. What gifts do these young people we have here right now, what can they share? They mowed the lawn, they shoveled the snow, they read the lessons, and the adults were renewed. There are more adults in that congregation now too. So build on your strength, and please celebrate your successes. Try your hardest to notice where God is at work, and it's working. Don't sit and look at the glass and say, it's really empty. Examine the Benedictine tradition of asking God, of letting God be with you at the end of each day and taking a chance to say, for what am I most grateful? And what do I regret? Is a great way for us to get at blessings that we have been given so that we can be